Go ahead, boss.
Hello and happy Orktober! For the one remaining day of October. I'm back, you missed me? Today we're going to be talking about the Black Library Orc novels. Let's get stuck in. As one of the oldest and largest factions in Warhammer 40,000, Orcs appear in a lot of literature and a lot of different media like the video games, animated shorts, etc, etc. It is a bit surprising then that the Orcs didn't really have their own book until Brutal Kunnin came out in 2020. Since then, many more Orc novels have been released, and they're all pretty good. A quick disclaimer, I'm only going to be talking about books that have had physical releases today. We won't be discussing any of the audio-only or online-only short stories like Prisoner of Waaagh or The Big Race. I've heard great things about them, but I'm a paper reader. I need to have the book in my hands, so I don't have anything to say about them. We also won't be talking about the War of the Beast. The War of the Beast was a 12-book-long series of 4 novels, all published by different authors, in the span of about 10 months. That's not much time to write 12 books, and it really shows. They are bad. They're very bad. Adeptus Ridiculous, the flagship 40k lore podcast, has been covering the War of the Beast this month, and it sucks. It's full of terrible prose and plot holes. It's long-winded. It's mostly just Space Marine politics. It's not even about the Orcs. It's full of stuff that's been retconned, and rightly so, because much of it is dumb. Don't worry about it. We're not talking about it today. We also won't be talking about Hell's Reach, which is a book about the Black Templars crusading against the Orcs. I've heard good things about it. I don't think there's anything wrong with Hell's Reach. It's just really expensive to find a physical copy, so I haven't read it. But apart from that, I've read, I think, every Orcs novel released. So, let's begin with what I think is the quintessential Orc book. Ghazghkull Thraka, Prophet of the Waaagh, by Nate Crowley. This is, in my opinion, the best Orcs book to date. Nate Crowley has written a love letter to Orcdom in all its violent absurdity. An Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos enlists a Blood Axe commando as captor and translator for Makari, Ghazghkull's personal banner-waving grot. The narrative jumps back and forth between the centuries-spanning saga of Ghazghkull's conquest and the interrogation chamber on the ship. And it rocks. It is so good. The book is so extremely clever, and the writing feels deliberate every step of the way. Crowley has chosen an incredible supporting ensemble that make for great parallels and foils for the Orcs. The utterly alien nature of the Orc brain is put on display and dissected to great effect. There are moments of real shock and horror followed by genuinely laugh-out-loud gags. It perfectly encapsulates the experience of the Orcs. This quickly became my favorite novel. I loved it so much that when I finished it, I was so excited that I went right back to the start and immediately began reading it again. That's never happened to me before. I have so much good to say about this book that I have to cut this here, otherwise we'll be going for half an hour. If you are even vaguely interested in the Orcs, then Prophet of the Waaagh is something I cannot recommend highly enough. In my opinion, this is the Orc Bible. The Uftak Trilogy, Brutal Kunnin, Warboss, The Big Dakka, by Mike Brooks. If Prophet of the Waaagh is the Orc Bible, then Brutal Kunnin and Uftak's further misadventures are the Orc Treasure Island. This is the slapstick on the surface, horrifying underneath if you stop and think about it, brand of Orky humor that they are known for, and it is executed very, very well. Uftak Black Orc, a Bad Moon's Knob, rises through the ranks of the Tequar through a series of extravagant action sequences and moments of proper Kunnin. His story begins in a raid on Hephaesto, a forge world of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Later, he plunges into the Webway and goes fighting through Dakari territory in search of plunder and battle with the spiky scrawnies. In between Brutal Kunnin and the Big Dakka, elsewhere in the galaxy, Warboss follows the story of a Waaagh whose Warboss is suddenly squashed to death by the falling head of his own Gargant. 3 big bosses in his retinue all race to the heart of the planet's last remaining human city to see who will claim the title of Warboss. Mike Brooks truly understands the mind of an Orc, Though they are silly on the surface, his characters are all very memorable because they're thoroughly fleshed out and their silliness is contextualized by the world around them. In Big Dakka especially, we get some great orc philosophy. The action sequences are great, the gags are laugh out loud funny, and the sequences are super memorable. The forces that oppose the Orks in Brutal Kunnin and in Warboss, the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Astra Militarum respectively, can feel a little flat, underfleshed out. Their loss is kind of already implied in the story, but they're not really there as an oppositional force. They're more set dressing. They're a backdrop in front of which the Orks can thrive. In the Big Dakka, the Drukhari are given a lot of elbow room for their own development, so it really does feel like two factions' ideals clashing together. You could read any of these books on their own, but I think the juice is worth the squeeze to read them all as a collection. Start with Brutal Kunnin, and then read the next two if you like them. If you have any interest in Orks, or if you're just looking for a fun sci-fi romp, I think Mike Brooks has done a great job, and you'll enjoy his work. Grotsnik the Mad Dog by Denny Flowers. Grotsnik feels a bit like a spiritual successor to Prophet of the Waaagh, similar tone and a lot of recurring characters. Valton, an eccentric beast-snagger knob, encounters the Mad Dog Grotsnik plying his trade as a pain boy, assisting in a Waaagh that is on the verge of crushing a human planet infested by gene stealers. Behind the scenes, Grotsnik is working on something great and foul, something he hopes will be his magnum opus that surpasses even Ghazghkull. This book explores some of the science fiction, organic body horror elements of Orks that aren't really touched on much. Some of it is weird, some of it is dark, some of it is genuinely unsettling. But the Orks are such an inherently funny faction that the book still has moments of brevity and some great jokes without breaking its darker tone. We also get to see some of the logistics of Ork life and Ork warfare that are usually brushed over or omitted in action-heavy Warhammer literature. The Gene Stealers are a quite unique matchup for the Orks. You don't see Orks versus Gene Stealers much. Their defeat is kind of a foregone conclusion, like some of the enemies in the Mike Brooks novels. They are just the backdrop, but they're a very interesting contrast, especially in their more medical organic side. It gives Grotsnik a lot to riff on. I didn't read this entire book again like I did with Prophet of the Waaagh, but I did go back and reread some weird, spooky, kind of didn't make sense at the time moments that Denny Flowers has sprinkled throughout the story. These all come together and make sense in retrospect in a very cool way once you reach the finale. If you enjoyed Ghazghkull Thraka, Prophet of the Waaagh, you will enjoy Grotsnik, the Mad Dog. Catachan Devil by Justin Woolley. Being the clan that has the most similar behavior and the most contact with humans, blood axes are usually represented in most Ork literature. Catachan Devil is the tale of a soft-welled Imperial Guard conscript who finds an unlikely family with the hardened, infamous Catachan jungle fighters. They've been called to a planet to quell the invasion of a Death Skull's Ork force. Catachan Devil is also the zero-to-hero story of Nogrok Sneaky Guts, a Blood Axe commando in this Death Skull's force who is just as cunning as the Yumis. Nogrok is an extremely charming point-of-view character, and the weird even by Ork standards of Blood Axes is explored in full detail here. The humans aren't pushovers either. They get to be fleshed out and stand on their own and are more than a match for the Orks. There are some great parallels drawn between them. The actual compelling nature of the kind of love-hate relationship between a Blood Axe Ork and a Catachan jungle fighter is really interesting. The dialogue is natural, the pacing is great, the jokes are good, and everything gets a chance to thrive. Orks even get to be genuinely scary, which they don't always get to do since they're so funny. But at the beginning of the book, when it's the Orks versus the soft-welled guardsmen, it is a slaughter. It is a horror show. This story is the smallest in scope of all the books we've talked about so far. Everything takes place mainly around one outpost in one region of jungle, next to one hive city. Still, the pacing and the escalation of the stakes keeps it from feeling stagnant. This is a great little read for anyone interested in Orks or Catachan, and it's a mandatory read for Blood Axe fans. Long Live the Red Gobbo by Justin Woolley. Woolley returns to Sneaky Greenskins in this installment of the Red Gobbo series, which are shorter books, closer to short stories than novels. I picked this up without having read any of the others in the series, and it still made perfect sense. The Red Gobbo is an icon, a persona that Grots don when they want to rise up and free their fellow Grots from their Orc oppressors, a symbol of the revolution. In this book, their Grot-commandeered cruiser crash lands on a planet that is ruled by maroon snakebites. Without their leader, who is quickly killed by the boss there, Brukka Bloodsplitter, a new Gobbo has to rise to fight the tyranny. Woolley's overt comedy gets to shine in this bite-sized little adventure. It is first and foremost a fun, silly book. There's no shockingly poignant philosophy here that you'll find like in Grotsnik or the Big Dakka, or even in Catachan Devil sometimes. Still, it's good fun, and the often neglected snakebites get to take center stage here, and we get more details of their paradoxical, backwoods, techno-savage views than we normally do. This isn't a must-read if you're not all in on Grots and the Revolution, but it's still a good snack. Aside from the rest of the Red Gobbo series and the aforementioned War of the Beast and Hell's Reach, that's all of the Orc books. I'd like to take a quick detour to some Orc-adjacent books as well while we're here. Other 40k stories where the Orcs feature but are not a central focus, or other green skin literature in Black Library, not necessarily about the Boyz in space. The Infinite and the Divine by Robert Rath. The Infinite and the Divine is often called one of the best and most accessible novels for Warhammer 40,000, and I couldn't agree more. Two ancient and powerful Necron overlords fight over a mysterious MacGuffin in a centuries-long string of planet-killing spy versus spy hijinks. The pacing and the dialogue and the action set pieces and the authenticity of the prose makes it feel like a Spielberg adventure movie. It's great fun. I was pleasantly surprised at how much screen time the Orcs are given in this book. They show up in the middle of the novel, and then they're scattered throughout the rest of the way, and they are so much fun. Their initial appearance is one of the most memorable sequences of the entire book. It's all about their black comedy, their biological weirdness, and their insane technology. I would already recommend Infinite and the Divine to any reader, but the Orcs are a cherry on top. Krieg by Stephen Lyons. The Death Corps of Krieg are one of the most memed about factions in the entire game, but this historical drama, last stand war story hybrid by Stephen Lyons lays bare their lore in its grim reality. It's compelling, but a little dry, like most histories. I think you need to be an Astra Militarum fan or a real-world war history buff to get the most out of this book. Here, the Orcs are slavering cartoon monsters. Their inherent goofiness is present, but they're not played for gags. The focus is squarely on their relentless violence and their efficacy at killing lots and lots and lots of humies. There's not enough of them in this book to read it just for the Orcs, but if you're already vaguely interested in it, then they're a nice bonus. I read it assuming that they would have a bigger part in it and was disappointed to find out that they didn't, but I still liked it enough that I can recommend it, but not on the back of just the Orcs. Bad Loon Rising by Andy Clark. Across the gulf of IPs, we're going to jump into Age of Sigmar, where Andy Clark, resident Gloomspite Gits novelist, brings us a zero-to-hero story. Not like Nogrok, though, who has to grow over time, learning and strengthening himself. Bad Loon Rising is the rollicking adventure of Zograt, a tiny grot, runt of his tribe with a bad leg, who suddenly receives the Bad Moon's blessing and becomes an extremely powerful wizard. Now he has to figure out what to do with all this magic, to use his cunning to unite the tribe of grots that is around him, and to crush the human city. There's a great big magical mountain behind them, where the dark lair of a god beast waits to be claimed by the Gobbos. Andy Clark understands the grot mindset, much like Mike Brooks does the orc mindset. The dialogue and the gags here are excellent, and a lot of the action is quite compelling. The humans also are actually fairly fleshed out. They make a great contrast for the grots, but they're also a great way to highlight a lot of the hypocrisies of the humans in the Age of Sigmar setting. I had a lot of fun with this book. It's of a similar tone to the Uftak trilogy, so if you enjoyed those and you want a little bit of fantasy flavor, I can recommend you Bad Moon Rising. Bad Loon Rising! No, that's the pun! That's the thing! I got it wrong! The Realmgate Wars, Book 7, Fury of Gork, by Josh Reynolds. The Realmgate Wars is a series from Age of Sigmar's primordial soup, when the setting was still being pieced together from the broken fragments of Warhammer Fantasy. Stormcast Eternals stride out into the yet uncharted mortal realms to seek allies of the Sigmar Pantheon and crush the forces of chaos. In this 7th installment of the series, I didn't read the other 6 and I don't know how many come after it, the Stormcast Eternals venture into the beastlands of Ghur, looking for the unlikely allies of the Orks, children of Gork, a past ally of Sigmar. They enlist their help to crush the disciples of Tzeentch. The book is okay. It's a bit of a mixed bag. The Orks are great fun. It's kind of a time capsule of the direction they wanted to take Age of Sigmar greenskins at the beginning of the game, and you can see what threads they've continued to pull on and what they've left by the wayside. Gordrakk, in particular, shines. He feels like an Age of Sigmar Ghazghkull, and I mean that in the best way possible. The Tzeentch characters are actually a lot of fun. They're weird and wacky in the ways that you would hope Tzeentch characters would be, and they have great dialogue scenes between each other. The Stormcast Eternals are kind of boring, they're very bland, they taste like cardboard, and for a book with as many fight sequences as this one, you'd think the action would be a bit better, but it gets kind of monotonous sometimes. I can't recommend this book if you're an Orc fan, unless you're really interested specifically in Age of Sigmar Orcs, or you specifically want to see kind of the history of greenskins in Warhammer IPs. Which I did, which is why I got it, and I thought it was okay. And that's it! That's everything I've read with Orcs in it. I mean, Lion, Son of the Forest has the Orcs mentioned like twice in passing and they never show up. That doesn't count. Now that's everything I've read with Orcs in it. On the whole, I think Orcs are in great hands when it comes to their lore. The writers that are writing about them are talented, they are capable, and they handle the Orcs very tastefully. They never feel like they become farcical or derivative. They can be silly, but it's always contextualized by their lives and their environment. They make sense as silly because it is the whole picture of Orkdom. They aren't reduced to green clowns. They are funny and horrifying and violent and glorious all at once. It's a great time to be reading books about the Boyz. Thank you for watching this month's one and only Orktober video, and indeed the only video I've released this year so far. You might be wondering where I've been, and why the audio and the lighting are even worse than usual. My partner and I moved states earlier this year, and that's quite an ordeal in Australia. My hobby stuff didn't come with me in the move, and there scarcely would have been time or money for it anyway. This channel was always only meant to be kind of a public hobby journal, a fun little creative endeavor to dabble in video editing, and an outlet for giving beginner advice to people who are starting with Orcs that I wish had been given out when I was. But now, there is slightly more time, and slightly more money. And there are rumblings of an Orc starter set at the launch of 11th edition last year. Apparently there's also a thriving kill team community here in my new city. So I wouldn't count this channel out as dead just quite yet. Orcs is never beaten. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy Orktober. Bye bye!
Sod off!